Have you ever been in a really loud atmosphere? One time I went to the G3 concert, which for those of you who don't play electric guitar, it's basically three of the best electric guitar players in the world doing their best to make our ears bleed, right? And it was awesome. So the final act was a guy named Steve Vai, and he gets on stage and he starts playing. Listen, the other two guys were loud, but Vi he was another level of loud, like painfully loud, like standing next to the fire alarm loud. So my ears were ringing for like 2 hours after the concert. Totally worth it. But in this series, we've been talking about what's true for only the young, right? People in your phase of life. And when it comes to being young, there's one thing that is uniquely true. There's a lot of noise, right? Just think about your day to day life. Now, maybe you, I don't know, listen to the headphones with the volume all the way up, like my kids all do. Maybe you turn the volume up in the car and you scream that song at the top of your lungs with your friends. It's probably Taylor Swift, right? You get in trouble for being too loud in class. That was me, right? Lose your voice after a football game on a Friday night every week. Now, you may not be a loud person, but you constantly find yourself around people who are. And I'm not saying that young people are just loud. I'm saying that when we're young, noise seems to find us, and it can be hard to figure out what or who to listen to. And that's especially true when we're making decisions about literally everything. Have you ever noticed that everyone seems to have an opinion about what you should or shouldn't do? There's so much noise, voices like this, right? And at this phase of life, you're deciding what you like and don't like, who you like and don't like, how to drive, what your personal style is going to be, what you'll do in the years after high school, what kind of jobs you want to pursue, who to date, what kind of person to be. And that's a lot. Now, some friends say, you should do this, you should do this thing. And your other friends say, oh, no, you should do this other thing. And then your siblings have advice, and your parents have a perspective. Your coach wants to weigh in, and your teachers, and your guidance counselors, and your SAT prep tutors, and oh my God, your parents' friends, right? And at the end, your friends, siblings, everybody wants to chime in. But maybe you wish you had someone in your life who shared their opinions and perspectives with you instead of the advice from some random guy on TikTok, right, who has a ton of money, or that YouTuber with millions of subscribers, or the article you found on Google. Maybe you wish you had some legitimate opinions instead of just what you see on social media. There's so much noise surrounding almost every decision that you want to make. Oh, and you all know this, but not all of those people agree. And even worse, not all of them are right. So, with all that noise and all of the opinions and all the voices that are speaking into your life, and how do you know who or what to listen to? Paul, who we've talked about throughout this series and previous series, he's one of the most legendary leaders in the history of Christianity. He spent a lot of time investing in a younger guy named Timothy. They traveled, they worked together, and then eventually Timothy was leading on his own at a church in a city called Ephesus. So, in order to pass along some of the wisdom that Paul had about life and leadership, he wrote Timothy a letter. Many people view the tone of Paul's letter like a father instructing his son. There's this one part of his letter that we've been focusing on specifically throughout this series, and it says this: don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech and in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. And that's 1 Timothy 4, verse 12. This piece of advice was so important, and it continues to be talked about and focused on today. See, Paul wanted Timothy to understand how high the stakes were, how great his potential was, and how he could lead well even during his young years. However, this is only a part of what Paul had to say to Timothy. In fact, we have copies of two letters that Paul wrote to Timothy. And they're full of advice and wisdom and directionality for life. It wasn't just spiritual stuff either. Like here's what Paul tells Timothy in his letters, right? Paul gave Timothy advice about how to fix his stomach problems. That's chapter 5 verse 23. He gave him advice on what to do when other people are fighting. Chapter 2 verse 23. What it takes to be a good leader. Chapter 3 verses 1 through 13. There's a lot to being a good leader. Specific names of people to avoid that were bad news at the time. That's chapter 4 verse 14. How to use the Bible. Chapter 3 verse 16. How to handle money. 1 Timothy 6. What kind of stuff to avoid. 2 Timothy 2:22. What kind of people to hang out with. 2 Timothy 2:22. How to impress older people. 1 Timothy 4 verse 12. How to show respect to older and younger people. 1 Timothy 5, 1 and 2. As you can see, Paul was not just Timothy's Bible teacher or like his life chaperone. Paul was Timothy's go-to advice guy. Even more than that, Paul was someone older who shared wisdom with Timothy that would make his life better. This kind of wisdom in what we see, the letters of 1st and 2nd Timothy, that's what they're full of. And it's worth it to go back and to read those letters for yourself. Paul did not teach Timothy lessons that were just meant for future Timothy once he was grown up and not young anymore. Paul helped Timothy figure out what to do in the circumstances of his life as a young person. In other words, when Timothy was wondering, how do I know what I don't know? His answer would be, ask Paul. And here's the reason that we're still talking about this today. It's a little thing that makes a big difference. So don't miss this, okay? It was Timothy's choice. Timothy understood that we all need the wisdom of someone older. That's true for you in high school, and it's true for me even as an adult. The thing is, you have a really unique opportunity to take advantage of right now. When you're in high school, one thing you can do that will change your whole high school experience is to pick a mentor or pick a group of mentors, even better. These are people who can help you in real life ways. They're the kind of people that are going to walk alongside you as you navigate life in high school. They can give you great advice. They can be there for you when you don't really know what to do. And please hear me. You can totally still listen to people your age. But the truth is, people who are older than you have more life experience. They have more highs and lows and more situations that they've experienced that equip them to help you navigate real world situations. Now, before you go find just some rando person that's older than you to give you life advice, which by the way is a terrible idea, it's important that we use wisdom in who we choose. I mean, is being older really the only qualification? No, right? Here are two filters to help you pick a great mentor. They have to make wise decisions in their own life. I'm not talking about perfection, and good luck finding somebody like that. I'm talking about a person with a pattern of making healthy choices. A great way to determine that is to ask yourself this question: does this person make the kind of decisions that lead to the kind of life that I want to live? And if the answer is yes, you're on your way to finding a great mentor. The other thing is that they have to care enough about you to tell the truth, even the truth that you don't want to hear. See, a great mentor will tell you things that you need to hear, not just what you want to hear. They will say the difficult things out of love if they believe it'll help you grow for the better. Yes, sometimes it's really difficult to hear hard truth, but it's also the way that we grow. And having someone in your life who will tell you the truth, even the truth you don't want to hear, is one of the greatest gifts you will ever receive in life. I have personally had several mentors in my life, and I find that, for me at least, those mentors tend to change as I move through the stages of my life. For example, My dad taught me all sorts of practical skills and disciplines, from how to change a tire to always do the work first before you go to play. When I was a youth in youth group, there were two guys who were both very involved in our youth group. They were integral in teaching me how to be a man, how to pray, and how to have a personal relationship with God. I got older, got married, became a police officer, and I had older veteran guys who taught me everything I needed to know, from how to put my gear on right to how to properly write a 168 criminal affidavit, whatever, on a conspiracy case. I had guys who taught me about property management, how to manage my finances. The point is, I want you to have a mentor now that can invest in who you are as a person, what you enjoy in life, and more importantly, the way that you're following Jesus. So when the noise is turned up and everybody seems to have an opinion, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to decide ahead of time who you're going to listen to. Look, I know that this isn't necessarily a common way to live in high school. It's not like everybody in your school is constantly talking about their great mentors or finding the next one, right? But here's why this is so important for you. Wisdom, or knowing what to do when you face life circumstances, comes from experience. When you're in high school, you can choose to learn from people who have 15 years of wisdom, or 30 years, or 40 years, or 60 years. That choice is yours. But one of the best choices I think you can make is to pick your mentor. Like Timothy, you can have more wisdom than what's common. You can make better decisions because you have the experience and the wisdom of someone older than you in addition to your own. Now just imagine the impact that that would have on your life, right? Imagine if you could make great decisions right now, better decisions than I made, and the kind of decisions that will shape your life for the better forever. And the key is as simple as acknowledging that we all need the wisdom of someone older. You can choose to live as though this is true, and you can find a mentor. And when you do, God might just use their wisdom to help your years of being young become even better. Being young it's amazing, frankly. We don't want you to miss it. We don't want you to try and fast forward through it. We want you to get the most out of this time in your life, because one day, bad news, you won't be young. So don't forget what this feels like, okay? Because there are some things in life for only the young. That's a really long break. 2, 1. So don't forget what this feels like, okay? Because there's some things in life that are only for the young. Now, when you head out to your small group or wherever it is you're going, think about this response to this question. I want you to answer this in your own mind. What impact could a mentor's wisdom have on my life?